So Iraq is in the throes of a civil war, a three-way civil war. The government, mainstream Shiite, and everybody says, why don't they compromise? This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. The Shiites were the majority in Iraq ever since the founding of the modern Iraqi state. In 1932, they got their independence. The Shiites were in the minority, were in the majority, but persecuted by the minority Sunnis who ruled. Do you think they're going to agree to share power with those people? So this civil war goes on, and the Shiites are, I'm sure, very grateful that Shiite Iran is backing and supporting them. They're not going to voluntarily. The best thing you could get, I wrote an article about this many years ago, which I entitled, and maybe you'll find it on the internet, I ran it under the headline, "The Right Question. Is disillusion the solution? Is it time?" And this I wrote, really, maybe it's even 10 years ago now. Is it time to look at the map of the Middle East, most of those lines drawn by Europeans, without any regard to tribes, sectarian beliefs, ethnic grouping? Is it time to redraw the map? Would not Iraq survive better with a Shiite core in the east, a Kurdish area, which it now de facto exists in the north, and the Sunnis? Well, the Sunnis of Iraq could join the Sunnis of Syria, and maybe they make a new state, or join the Sunnis of Saudi Arabia. What's so sacred about all those lines on a map? I'll tell you what it is. The Europeans are scared if they start redrawing lines, then, oh my God, we're back to nationalism, and oh my God, that's a bad thing. Look what happened. We had nationalism, and it brought us World War II. We got to get rid of nationalism. We need supranationalism. We need transnationalism. We need open borders. Oh, I forgot. Open borders mean all those immigrants are coming in who don't assimilate. There's part of your rub. So Iraq will continue with civil war. And we had it stabilized. And you saw it when they counterattacked the Sunni remnants, the Saddam Hussein leftovers. When they counterattacked, we didn't do much. Then George Bush ordered the surge, and it worked. But we had to stay. You can't leave. People forget. When did American troops leave Germany after World War II? The answer is never. They're still there. And the Germans want them there. But at first, we didn't want to leave because we realized if we leave, guess who comes back? The Nazi ideology will be back in a fortnight. So we can't leave. And the same thing with Japan. So yes, it's the long haul. Does the American people have the patience for a long haul? No, and you wonder what it might take. 9/11 wasn't enough. Do we need multiple terrorist attacks on the same day at different shopping malls across the USA with high death toll? Remember, their goal now is get a number higher than 3,000. So that the American public will scream, we don't know, we elected you, do it please, you government people. And you know what they'll do? Like I say, at some point there will come a government and all they'll do is issue bottles of Clorox to every American family. When the time comes, you take that wonderful banner that stands for so much and you just bleach it. See, that's where we're headed. Jordan, tiny Jordan, the kingdom on the fence, plagued by resident Palestinian Arabs who think of themselves more as Palestinian than as Jordanians. In fact, Jordan is Palestine. There was no Jordan till Winston Churchill, with the stroke of a pen on a Sunday afternoon in Cairo in 1922, drew a line right down the Rift Valley, the Dead Sea, the Jordan River, and created something that never existed. But upwards, some say 70%, some say 80%, upwards of 70 to 80% of the population is Palestinian. They have a state. There is a problem. There is the loyal Bedouin Corps in Jordan, supports the king. There is the Muslim Brotherhood. There are now over 1 million, I think 1.5 million, Syrian refugees. And Jordan's been given the task. Obama gave him the task. If Syria is building nuclear weapons, you got to take care of that. The Jordanian army going to take care of that? I don't think so. There's one country that Jordan knows stands behind it, but it's limited in what it can do. Israel will stand behind Jordan. Israel prefers the devil it knows to the devil that may come to occupy Amman. In 1970, Israel saved Jordan. The Soviets encouraged Syria invade with the PLO, topple the Hashemite kingdom, make the PLO have its own state in what used to be Jordan. And the Israelis stood ready to intervene. And luckily, the king, that was Abdullah's father, Hussein, he saw, I've got America behind me, I got Israel behind me, I'm going to commit my tiny air force, go bomb those Syrian tanks. They did, the Syrians stopped, and Kissinger called in the Russians and said, your proxy started it, you stop it. And of course the Russians, no, we're not involved. Our men only went up to the Syrian-Jordanian border. We're not involved. Oh my God. All right. The Saudis, Saudi Arabia is now going to seek nuclear weapons. They have looked at events in the last 2-3 years, and they see the Obama policy is talk. And what should we do next? Let's talk some more. And we'll sign a piece of paper. We all know how well that works. Talk to Chamberlain's ghost. Let's sign a piece of paper which will delay. And when we can't reach an agreement, we'll delay more. You need to understand the bottom line. The Obama administration has given Iran 6 years and counting to please hurry up and finish your bomb, because if you get the bomb, then I can go and say, what can we do? We're not going to start a nuclear war between the United States and Iran. What can I do? They did it. We'll live with it. Okay? That's what he's accomplished. The Saudis see this. They see themselves abandoned by Obama. The Gulf states are nervous. They have the money. Saudi Arabia has already made a preliminary backup plan. Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, which is nuclear armed, have an agreement that there is a Saudi Air Force cargo plane, and it sits there on the Pakistani base where Pakistani nukes, some of them, are stored. And with the signature on a notification by the Saudi king and I think the defense and intelligence ministers, Pakistan will immediately release 2 of those weapons and they go to Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, Saudi is not sitting idle. They originally, back in the 80s, they bought Chinese missiles. They were liquid fueled. Now they're building solid fueled missiles. They want to have retaliatory capability against Iran. And oh yes, if we have extra, we could always use them on Israel. But right now, we won't talk about that. And the Saudis have the money, along with the Gulf states, to do this. They are worried about Iran. They are worried about the lack of American resolve. Because of our foreign policy, every would-be tin pot dictator has come out of the woodwork to say, I can push and get what I want. If I scream loud enough, if I terrorize big enough, the Americans will throw me a bone, and aid, and equipment, and loans. Saudi Arabia has an impending other crisis, and that is a succession crisis. Going back to 1953, when the founder of Saudi Arabia, Ibn Saud, he has a very long name, but everybody called him Ibn Saud, when he died, it went to his brother, the succession. And since 53 to the current, it's succession, not father to son or father to daughter like in the United Kingdom, but it went from brother to brother to brother to brother to brother to brother. Yes, many brothers. Ibn Saud, I think he had about 50 wives and maybe 40 wives and concubines and 53 children, 40 of which plus were sons. So brother to brother to brother. Well, guess what? All of those brothers have been, quote, used up. Ben King died, succeeded by another brother, but now we're getting the brother. They're in their 80s. They're sick. Soon, very soon, we will have to go to the next generation, okay, of which there are hundreds of related second generation of children of all those brothers. And this very likely can lead to civil war, disillusion, power struggle, and the Saudis going to have to handle it all on their own, because right now, Obama isn't interested. He's got to cut a deal with Iran. So that's coming. All right? United Arab Emirates, you don't hear much about them, but guess what? They do participate. I came across, and this is factual, they have participated in every major U.S.-led coalition since 1991, Persian Gulf War, except for the invasion of Iraq in 2003. They joined the Americans in Somalia, Kosovo, Libya, Afghanistan, and in addition to an ongoing air campaign against the Islamic State. But they're tiny. They worry. Iran has aspirations. Abu Dhabi and Iran have had a long-standing feud. Iran took over 3 strategic islands in the Strait of Hormuz. Abu Musa and the Tums. No, that's not an Arab rock group like Diana and the Belmonts. No. Abu Musa and the Tums. Look at a really blown-up map of, I have one of those in the new book, of where it is. And Iran has, here comes the word, I need Groucho Marx duck to come down. What's the magic word? Occupied. The Iranians have occupied those islands since 1971, and even though they went through some motions a year or two ago to return them or lease them from Abu Dhabi, they haven't budged. They're not going anywhere. The Iranians will stay there because this way they really can choke off the Strait of Hormuz and shipping traffic. We have stationed military personnel in Abu Dhabi at an air base, at a naval facility, but it's not much. When you, as president, have reduced the United States carrier task forces in the whole region to 1, it's supposed to take care of the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman, the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea. 1 aircraft carrier task group? You're sending a signal America's power isn't there anymore. Remember, please, Kuwait was overrun in 1 day. By the time one of these rulers gets on the phone and dials 555-1212, hello, Hillary, are you expecting a 3 a.m. call? Well, we got a problem. Oh, she's gone. Well, you never know. She too dreams of Schwarzenegger's words. In late August of 2014, several UAE aircraft helped Egypt bomb Muslim Brotherhood camps on the Libyan-Egyptian border because they were threatening El-Sisi. Because remember, he's got to hang on. We want him to hang on. We should be aiding him, except Obama punished him. Kuwait, same problem. All right? It's etched in their memory. We lost our country in one day. Thank God for America and the countries that rounded up and prodded and kicked and dragged, screaming into the coalition. I love this. I get nauseated every time I hear him say it. We and our partners. What partners? If they send 4 planes and they bomb with you, this is a partner? I guess so. But who's carrying the heavy weight? See? But now Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Oman, they know America's not going to come riding to the rescue. What do? Maybe we pool our money and maybe we get nukes. You see what this is triggering? The nuclearization of the region, and that is not good because, sad to admit, there isn't a responsible potential nuclear power in the entire Middle East except for one, Israel. All right? And they're not about to just run out and say, I'm going to wipe you off the map. That's Iran's line. Bahrain would have gone under during those revolts. It's the home to the U.S. Fifth Fleet, only because of only because of Saudi military intervention along the causeway. They built a long causeway that connects mainland Saudi Arabia to the island kingdom of Bahrain. Only because, and the Saudis built that with this in mind. We may have to come riding to the rescue, and we're not going to be able to go get boats and ships. We don't have much of a navy. We'll go riding across the causeway and rescue the king of Bahrain, because again, here is a country, a minority Sunni group lead. The royal family, the Al Khalifa family, is Sunni. The majority of the people are Shiite. Iran has long-standing historic claims. These people are our 14th province. We want to get them back. So Bahrain knows it's a target. And it's hoping, well, they're all praying, are we going to be able to wait out the next 2 years without anything untoward happening? And yet, understand, the forces against us, they want everything to occur before he leaves office, before he empties Gitmo, before he gives Gitmo back to Cuba, which I believe is his ultimate goal. Because we lease it in perpetuity, and he, being the great anti-imperialist that he is, he wants to give it back to Cuba. After all, you know all the wonderful goodies we got for a restoration of relations. Okay. Qatar is the oddball of the Persian Gulf states. It backs the Muslim Brotherhood. It's in league with Turkey. It's got Al Jazeera, the biggest mouthpiece in the Middle East, broadcasting. But the new crown prince, he's been backing off a little bit. After all, while it's very rich, it's also very tiny. Oman, another one you never hear about. Wonderful sultan rules there. But he is going to have a succession crisis. He is, I believe he's been on the throne 50 years. Okay, over 50 years. He's terminally ill and has no children. The ruling family council is to pick an heir within 3 days of the sultan's death. Do you want to bet during the 3 days they're deciding there'll be riots? There'll be power plays. If they cannot do so, they will follow the wishes of the Sultan, who has left his choice in a sealed letter. May I have the envelope, please? Will that letter survive? Stay tuned. Oman is a very important country because it fronts not only on the Persian Gulf, but also at the tip that sticks into the Persian Gulf and all the way down the Gulf of Oman and around to Yemen. But then again, you should know all about Oman. Remember, our president released 5 terrorists from Gitmo. 4 of them are from Yemen. And he said, I'm not sending them back to Yemen. I'm sending them to Oman. Look at the map. Tell me who's patrolling that border. Speaking of Yemen, yes, following last September's Houthi takeover, now here we go again. The Houthis are Zaydis. The Zaydi Houthis are Shiites. They're Iranian proxies. They've been waging an insurgency, which I think we now properly can call a civil war. They have captured the capital city. Usually that means the country is ours. But there's fighting going on because there's Sunni remnants and they're trying to resist the old government. Saudi Arabia is trying to help them. All right? This poses a threat to Saudi Arabia. It's what I call, and I named this years ago when Nasser tried to do this in 62 and 63, I call it the ring around Arabia strategy. And you have the map to help you understand that. You take over Yemen, you move into Oman, you curve around the Gulf of Oman, and now you're hitting eastern Saudi Arabia where the oil is, and you're knocking off the oil-rich Emirates. Ring around Arabia. Nasser tried it, he got stopped. Now, Iran may be trying to do this. Put pressure on Saudi Arabia, not only from the north and from the west, but also from the south. To top matters off, in Yemen, there is a secessionist movement in southern Yemen. This is the area that used to be known as the People's Democratic Republic of Yemen, meaning South Yemen, not quite truly south, but more southeast. And it was the only Marxist Arab state in the world and a wonderful launching platform for the Soviet Union. Can Putin be far behind? For the Soviet Union to base equipment, men, material in order, in those days, to intervene in Ethiopia, to intervene in Angola. This is what gave the Soviet Union this extended reach. Because South Yemen was such a good geographical piece of real estate, and now there's a group there trying to rip Yemen apart after it's only been unified since 1990. Okay, so we come to Iran. So what do we need to tell you about Iran? Do you think they want to get a bomb? Do you think yesterday's or day before yesterday's announcement, we're going to build 2 new nuclear reactors, to which our president said, it's okay, they can do that. It wasn't in the flimsy agreement that we signed that's been pushed off another 6 months and another 6 months. Do you think they mean their intention? We will wipe Israel off the map? Remember, they can act through proxies. Anytime you run into trouble in Syria, in Yemen, wherever, if they pass the materials on to terrorist groups, you will see a regional war. Thank you, Iran. And how long has Iran been at war with the United States? Since November 1979. Isn't it time for us to start doing something about it? And don't hold your breath. We have 2 long years to go. Okay? And Israel. Well, there's our ally. You remember the ally thrown under the bus. It still faces an ongoing, it's 140 years and counting, Arab-Islamic war to eliminate the Jewish state from the map of the world and eliminate all the Jews as well. Why do you think they're targeted in France? These weren't Israelis, they were Jews. There is this very important, nobody wants to go there, nobody wants to talk about it. There's a religious component here, folks. Read the Quran. All right? They clearly explain the Jews are the enemy and they must be killed. Total, not just limited to Israel. The conflict that Israel faces is not smaller, it's larger. Again, thank your media. Thank this role reversal. Israel was the plucky little David standing up to the whole Arab world in 1967. And as soon as they won, they turned it around. No, Israel's the Goliath. And they're beating up on the poor new substitute David, the Palestinian Arabs, who conveniently we invent as a people starting in 1964. There was no independent Arab state of Palestine. There never was. There were Arabs. They were Arabs from all over the Arab world that moved into British mandatory Palestine for economic opportunity and stayed. And while the British, bless their little black hearts, Napoleon didn't call them perfidious Albion for nothing. Think about it. India, Cyprus, Palestine, and Ireland, there it is. Those four. The British ruled all of them. What was the British answer? No real solution. Partition. Partition. Leave it all feuding, fighting, hostile. That's still going on. The conflict is larger. Israel was fighting internal Arabs and 6 invading Arab armies in 1947 to 9. Now there is a 21-member Arab League at war with them. Yes, I know, Egypt and Jordan have peace treaties with them. Remember what peace treaties are. Okay? You get rid of the leader and the peace treaty is gone. Behind the 21 Arab countries are 56 members, which include the 21, of the Organization of the Islamic Conference. Now, maybe some of you know different, but yesterday I had to write a lengthy email. I had to look up his website and write him an email, because what he did, he says, well, if there is going to be an independent Palestinian state recognized by the UN, oh, by the way, this morning the International Court of Justice is accepting Palestinian cases against Israel. Yes, there's a good use of an international body meant for sovereign states allowing a terrorist organization to do things. He wrote in his piece, he says, well, if there's a new independent Arab-Palestinian state, there'll be 23 Arab states and 58 OIC members. I had to write to him. I said, wait a minute, time out. 21 independent Arab countries in the Arab League, plus one more member, the fictional, non-existent, non-sovereign, non-independent state of Palestine. What they want to call it is their business, but according to international law, that's not a country. Same thing in the OIC. 56 sovereign countries, one member, Palestine, quote unquote, non-independent, not sovereign. So what he was doing is, and this is what we must be leery of, do not accept their wording, their terminology. Do you accept the terminology? This was workplace violence. Do you accept that? Well, don't accept this other stuff. They say there are 20. So he took their word and went up to get 23. Israel is having an election soon. And if you think the left in the United States is bad, just watch Israeli politics. It's unbelievable. They don't get it. They've just been bombarded with rockets. Oh, let's give them some more land. So when does that end? When the last Israelis get on a raft and sail out from Haifa and yell back to the shore, somebody please turn off the lights, we're giving up? No. But the left don't get it. But it's a democracy, see? There's a limit to democracy. One man, one vote, one time. That's democracy. Okay? Israel now faces, and I hope I'm totally wrong, but Israel now faces a major war that can break out on every front, from Jordan, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Sinai, and from the sea. Because Israel has those nice gas fields. And any enemy would love to blow up all those platforms and stop Israel from making an economic hit in the energy sector. Obama, I will say it frankly, I've looked at what he's done. I looked at what Carter did. I would say Obama is the most hostile U.S. president to Israel ever. Don't be fooled by all these little, oh, we agreed to do this or that. Look at his real actions, and just because you say, okay, we'll stage joint maneuvers, or I came across a piece just recently, he says there's going to be more equipment stockpiled in Israel in case there's another war, which there will be. You run the office pool to see, is it going to be with Hamas, from Gaza, with Hezbollah, from Lebanon, from agents in Syria, or all three, or whatever, or Iran direct, who knows? He made, and it was big media. Oh, Obama, see, Obama's Israel's friend. He's giving them more stuff to stockpile. Time out. The stockpiles were already there, and when Israel ran out of Hellfire missiles in this last Gaza war, Obama refused. Don't they want to hear U.S. foreign policy? That was billed. I'll do that quick, okay? That was billed. Foreign policy. His policy has resulted in the installation of pro-Islamic supremacist regimes in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt. Egypt was rescued, thank God, to the not because of Obama's policy, but because of the Egyptian people and the Egyptian military. What's the results of Obama's foreign policy? Civil wars in Libya, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and soon Afghanistan. Okay? He's abandoned the allies. I've talked about that. He's abandoned. And our big problem is, what can happen now to the United States, to the West, to Israel in the remaining 2 years? I don't have an answer. But given the trend, I'm not optimistic. And that's putting a positive spin on it. Okay? I believe he has certain goals. I have voiced this before. I believe, as I said to you in passing, he wants to empty Gitmo and give it back to Cuba. Nobody talks about the giving back piece, but he wants to do that. I believe he wants to go into the history books as the man who put an independent Arab-Palestinian state on the map. Whether it's got a third of Israel, all of Israel, that doesn't matter. He did it. I believe that, okay? Instead of backing people like the Kurds, who have long deserved and have been promised their own state, we are turning on our friends. We face a very dangerous. What can we do? We got a new Congress, and you've got to educate them like never before. Because I listen and they talk, and you hear the same media soundbite. But excuse me, do you know? Are we monitoring what they say in their language to their people? Don't show me what Reuters printed. Time will tell. unfortunately, all too soon.
Thank you, Dr. Carroll, for coming. I'm going to ask 2 or 3 questions all at once that I'll lead into each other. Are you familiar with Joel Richardson's book, The Islamic Antichrist? Do you agree with his premise that the Islamic goal is to convert or kill all Christians and Jews and be a global religion? And do you agree with his precept that the Islamic religion is the religion of the Antichrist?
Thank you. But remember what Felix Unger told Oscar? Don't assume. I have a pile of some 50 books at home. No, I am not familiar with that book. However, I don't think I have to read that book to answer your second question. I have read the Quran. I have read Reliance of the Traveller, which is commentary of the Quran. In it, if you are a devout Muslim, these are the precepts you must follow because Allah, their God, told you to do this. You can't question. This is why El-Sisi has a big job, and he tries to skirt it carefully. Because what you're doing is going right back to the premise that, can Allah be wrong? Can Muhammad be wrong? You can't say that. So there's the problem. And yes, if you follow the precept, it's all out there. It's a blueprint. This is what you must do.
Convert or kill, right?
You're given choices. Convert, or if you're a Christian or a Jew, become a dhimmi, pay the jizya, which is the head tax, and live as a second class. Actually, I think it's more third class, because in Islamic society, women are second class. So dhimmis have to be third class. They're third class citizens, and there's all sorts of guidelines as to what they're allowed to do or not to do. So convert, become a dhimmi for those two. Hindus, Buddhists, Zoroastrian, I think Zoroastrians are exempted too. But the others, no. Convert, become a dhimmi, or death. That's the guideline. So this is what your author undoubtedly must have referred to as he's putting together. We face a civilizational struggle. We face a fourth world war. Part of the battle is we have to educate our own people. Did we fight World War II without talking about Nazism? Did we fight the Cold War without talking about communism? Excuse me? We can't say anything. We can't even say war on terror, which is stupid to begin with. We didn't have a war on blitzkrieg or kamikaze in World War II. We had a war against German Nazism and Japanese fascism and their hangers-on all over the world. That's what it was. You got to name the enemy, you got to come up with a plan, and you got to deal with it. Hopefully we'll start. Right now, our only line of defense is Congress. So Congress, stop pussyfooting around. You better have plans. I hope you got people. I've met Trent Franks. He's up on it. There's got to be more. You got to have a plan. What happens if there are France-like terrorist strikes in the United States on a big scale? 10, 20, 30. What is the plan? You got a plan? Have you secured the power grid? Are we okay to deal with an electronic pulse weapon? Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Dr. Carroll, for helping identify the ideology that we face. My question is concerning the Kurds. Number one, are they Muslim in the sense of being part of the Ummah? And two, can they be trusted as allies if they are part of the Ummah? And the third part is, can they survive the next 2 years under Obama?
Okay. The Kurds are Sunni, but they are not in the theological bent of many of the others. Because they are their own unique ethnic group, the Kurds are not Arabs. They're an Indo-European people. They've lived up in those mountains, and unfortunately, the fates have dealt them, thanks to the European map drawers. They have divided the Kurds. There are Kurds in Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Azerbaijan, parts of what used to be the Soviet Union. At the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, they were promised a state. They were double-crossed, never got it. They have periodically revolted against the Turks, but are repressed harshly. In Turkey, in fact, they were not allowed even to speak their own language. They were called Mountain Turks. The Turks like to camouflage. We never killed Armenians. There are no such things as Kurds. Okay. In Iraq, they periodically revolted, especially against the Iraqi regime. Before Saddam and so on, they used poison gas against them. And Barzani, he's the father, he's passed away now, he's the father of the current Barzani, who's the head of the Iraqi Autonomous Region. Barzani wrote to Kissinger, "We're ready to become the 51st state. We're ready to sell you all the oil you need. Just help us." And the U.S. knew this was going on. Israel was helping them. And the U.S. encouraged Israel. You got the ways and the means, go help them. And they did. And the Shah of Iran was helping them. But then the Shah was fooled. He got fooled, he paid for it. He got fooled by Iraq, who said, okay, we'll give you what you want. Stop aiding the Kurds. And he cut them off summarily, and the Iraqis began an offensive and began to destroy them. The Kurds are pro-Western. They are pro-Israel. Yes, they're Muslims. Remember, we are not in a war with all the Muslims in the world. We don't want that. We want most of those Muslims to turn against the others. I venture to say it's 20 to 30% now. The Islamo-fascists, the Islamic supremacists. But that's 300 million people. That's a big enemy. We need the other Muslims to help us. The Kurds deserve a country. One of their big proponents was William Safire, the New York Times. He was the only one out there writing, what about the Kurds? You screwed them over. You left them in the lurch. We got to help them. These are good people. It'll help our U.S. national security interests. Okay? Yes, I think we can trust them more than we can trust the Turks. Next question.
Well, can they survive the next 2 years?
Look, the Kurds have an army. Okay, it used to be a militia. The army is Peshmerga. Do you know what Peshmerga means in Kurdish? Facing death. And they got gals in it too. All they want, and when they were cut off on that mountain with the Yazidis, all they wanted was the arms. We don't want your American boys to come up on this mountain and fight them. We'll fight. Just give us the weapons. And see, I would trust the Kurds with the weapons. I don't trust the, quote, free Syrians, whoever they may be. So again, will they? God knows. Will they survive? I don't know. Because you don't, and this is the one wild card in the deck that's perhaps in our, and by our I mean in the American people's favor, not in the American government's favor. The wild card is you don't know what the enemy will do. And many times, indirectly, the enemy comes riding to our rescue. If you wouldn't have an attack in Paris and the Belgians rounding up another group just hours before they were going to strike, you would have people still. My head is in the sand, I'll push it deeper in the sand. Now things begin to happen. They're being forced. People are being forced to question. We've tried this all this time. Is it really working? So we don't know what the enemy will do. We don't know what Iran will do, what Syria will do. This is the unknown. But the Kurds will fight. And they should be our allies, and they should have a country.
Dr. Carroll, Mark Singer. There is going to be a problem with Egypt's water supply in the near future. The countries to the south are playing around with doing dams and doing all kinds of diversion of the water system. So Egypt's in a situation where they're pretty soon going to have to either go to war with these countries, such as possibly Ethiopia, Eritrea, to get their water where it flows again. What's your comment on the water shortage in Egypt?
Okay, the water shortage in Egypt can be solved by many ways. Let me dispose of the war thing. I know because I've written about it in my book that's out there, From Jerusalem to the Lion of Judah. I talk about what's going on in the Horn of Africa. Eritrea is not involved in this. The source of the Blue Nile is Lake Tana in Ethiopia. I've been there. And because of an unfair, again, thank you to the colonial powers for rigging it that way, but understand why. When Britain controlled Egypt, which it did temporarily for only 74 years, from 1882 to 1956, the British wrote every treaty to favor their protectorate, Egypt, not thinking, well, 100 years from now, we'll be gone. How does this impact on everybody around Egypt? And Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, they all want a share of the Nile waters, and Egypt didn't want to agree to this. And so, yes, there was talk, we're going to build a dam in Ethiopia, and then the shoe will be on the other foot. And Egypt, I know some hotheads threatened war, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, that's what Egypt needs to do. Go try to fight Ethiopia. I don't think that's going to work, but in any event, they're solving that issue by treaty. Secondly, there is this small process called desalination. This can help many of the countries in the Middle East. Thirdly, as was proven in Libya, and I believe they've done this surveying, in the western desert of Egypt, the western area of Egypt going near to the Libyan border, there are huge underground pocket, I'm not even saying pocket, you could almost say lakes. And I mean lakes perhaps in the size of a Great Lake or Salt Lake City Lake, underground. And I remember, and if I'm drawing the map backwards for me, but correct for you, if Cairo's over here, this is Western Egypt, and that's Libya, 1, 2, 3, there's like a chain of these. So if, big if, very big if peace breaks out, you could develop this and the people will get the water. Done?
No one else has their hand raised up, so I'm going to ask one more question.
Okay.
In that book, The Islamic Antichrist by Joel Richardson, he points out that the Islamic faith is the only religion in the world where it's okay and condoned to lie if the lie is going to further the Islamic cause. So, for instance, President Obama could claim he's a Christian, be a real closet Muslim, and lie about it to further the Islamic faith. Do you believe his lack of sending any high-level diplomats to the France walk on Sunday, just last Sunday, was intentional as a sign to the Islamics that he supports Islam and that he supports Islam?
I have no idea of what's in his mind from day to day. I look at trends. One, again, you quote your book, which is fine, but again, go to the Quran. In the Quran, it says this kind of deception, it's called taqiyya.
Yeah.
This kind of deception is perfectly acceptable, especially against the infidel, against the non-believer, okay? This is why Arafat can shake hands with Rabin on the White House lawn and sucker in Big Bubba, sucker him in to thinking, oh, this is peace, it's all over, now we all get Nobel Prizes. And then as soon as he's done, Arafat goes back to his people and he told them, the Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah And that's the treaty where the Muslims under Muhammad betrayed. They made a treaty and said it's going to be peaceful for 10 years because the Muslims under Muhammad were losing. And after 2.5 years, once he was strong, he attacked them and wiped them out. This is acceptable. When you see Arafat on Arabic news tape, and you can see that, go to MEMRI, MEMRI website. They monitor, and what's the other one? Palestinian Media Watch, that's the other one. Look those two up. They monitor, they have people who can translate from those languages for you, and you can see Arafat, he signed the agreement in Washington, and he comes home and he tells his people, Al-Hudaybiyah, they all knew what that meant. We're deceiving everybody. And then he going, jihad, 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 jihad. And he's not talking about inner struggle. He's talking about war.
Thank you.
That's what it is.
Next question.
My name is Susan, and I was so encouraged to hear you say that in my opinion as well, the only way for us to, in the West, to overcome the jihadists is for the moderate, if you will, and supposed peaceful Muslims to say to the rest of their people, you know, this is wrong. The unfortunate part, having read the Quran, is that in their scripture, it is not wrong.
That's correct.
So how do you think this is going to happen? What will be their motivation?
Okay. This is why these terms, extremists and moderates, If you're a devout believer, you've got to believe the Quran and what it says literally. That's it. Okay? But what you're looking for is more Muslims, like LCC, the Crown Prince of Bahrain, to question, is this really what we want? Because I don't think they're stupid. If it really came to a world war, and personally I have my own thoughts about that, I don't know if you want to hear them or not, but personally, if it came to it, they won't win. They won't win. But God help the planet. All right? And you can't, and they've been time. Remember, Saudi Arabia is the leading proponent of Sunni purism. Okay, let's use that term. Sunni purism, Wahhabism. Saudi Arabia has been at this game since the late 60s. It's got the money and the money pours in, building mosques everywhere, appointing the right imams to go and preach and indoctrinate and convert, making sure you get imams going to prisons and converting people. Iran has been the leading proponent of this since 1979. We're talking about almost now a half a century. And what have we been doing? We've been running away and saying, well, it's not this and it's not this. Can't use this word, can't use that word. But you're hoping that there will be people. We need millions. Millions to stand up and say, what was done is not in our name. Have we seen that yet? No.
And Obama.
And you may not, because they know unless we have support, we're dead. So therefore, what it might take is, how do you drain the swamp? You don't drain the swamp and get rid of the mosquitoes by finding the mosquito that landed over here and going, and there's no one here. No, you got to drain the swamp, which means you have to go to the source. And you got to get an American administration that said, our dear friends, and one of the ways we could do this, for example, is when we use the Keystone Pipeline, and we are energy independent, and we become one of the largest energy suppliers in the world. You go to the Saudis and say, look, you need protection. We're not saying that you got to stop selling your oil. You won't be selling as much to us. But you got to stop this proselytizing to spread this nonsense. If not, good luck, you're on your own. And if you threaten us or our allies because you get desperate, maybe you go for nukes, you will be held accountable. We need a Kennedy in this sense only. When he gets on television, it was a Monday night, I remember watching him, and he's ashen-faced. He didn't expect this. He helped bring it on, in fact. But, he says, an attack on any one of our allies anywhere in the Western Hemisphere will be regarded as an attack on us, requiring a full retaliatory response.
Amen.
Okay? We may have to get to that point. But part of it is educate. What do our people know about the Middle East? Where is that? Is the Middle East near the Middle West? Maybe. I think that would be a great question for Waters World to walk around and ask. Where's the Middle East? Is it near the Middle West? And you'll get people, yeah. It's just to the east of the Middle West. That's what they'll say. All right? Got to educate them. What is this all about? Why is it important? All right? You want a global village. You want interconnection among peoples. You can't say we want a global village, but if things get bad, we're going to shrink back into isolationist America and think we're safe. You think you're safe? Go look at that southern border. You got the answer.
Next question.
2 more questions.
Yes, and then we adjourn to the...
My
Okay.
name is Barbara Rose, and I'm wondering if you have read the book, The Looming Tower, and can you give us some enlightenment on Al-Tariq ideas? Al-Fariq idea? I'm not sure how it is spelled.
Is that the author of the book?
No,
Oh,
it may be a kind of Muslim sect. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the book.
Okay.
Believe me, there are literally tens of thousands of books out there. Can't read them all. And I have the advantage of reading with magnifiers. Last question? Yeah.
Dr. Carroll, I'm Francine Ramsberg. I guess it's a two-part question, but anyway, we've got Sharia law actually in this country. There are those in our Congress who are trying to pass Sharia law in this country. And then the peaceful Muslims that do exist here, they're afraid of their counterparts. But there are Muslims being put into Congress, there are Muslims being put into our security and our national security and everywhere else. So really, what do you suggest, or how can we stop Sharia law, and how can we actually discern who to trust when it comes to Muslims being put into positions of power in our country and in our government?
I'm going to answer your question obliquely. Do you remember the famous movie, The Mask? Okay, very good comedy movie. And you remember he put on the mask and his famous line was, "Smoking!" Remember that line? The next president of the United States, who I hope will not be a spiritual heir of the current occupant, will have a smoking pen to dismiss, fire, and purge. What is it? We can't purge? Obama's been purging. It's quiet. He gets rid of the military he doesn't like. Purge the government of these people. Yes, they have done damage, and we're going to have to find out how much damage. All right? But again, first line of defense is educate. Know it yourself, and then be able to speak to others. As I tell many groups, you have 4 groups to talk to. Uninformed, underinformed. They think they know, they don't know enough. Naive, and self-delusional. We can talk to those. If they are hopeless or malevolent, don't waste your time on them. You can't convince someone who's hostile. You can't. If they think everything is rosy and hunky-dory, or it's all a big religion of peace, you're not going to convince them. But the others, we got to educate. You have to educate, be able to speak. You have to get to Congress people. You got to educate them. You got to make your phone be smoking. Hello, Congressman Trent. Did you hear about this? I've been talking to my neighbors, and I understand. It's been written. Every phone call to politicians translates into 10,000 votes, because you're being active, but others may agree. And these are the kinds of things we got to do. And then call to task. Tell people where to look and connect the dots. And yes, there's more out there in the world than who's doing what on Dancing with the Stars. Because they'll be dancing on the stars until Sharia law says all those gals in those skimpy outfits, out. Thank you.
Thank you. Give them a big hand. Thank you very much, Dr. Carroll.
Would you like to learn more about Middle East history and keep up with current events? Check out Middle East Radio Forum, MIRF, a lively talk radio program with listener participation and an emphasis on the Arab-Israeli conflict. Dr. Steve Carroll is a frequent guest on the program. MIRF is broadcast live from Phoenix every Sunday at noon on KKNT 960 AM and worldwide on the internet at www.960thepatriot.com.